What I wanted to do, first of all, welcome everybody here. Tom Fortunato will do the introductions in a moment. I just want to bring everybody up to date who might not have had experience yet with the tariff situation in ordering from outside the US. I ordered a book from Canada, The World of Classic Stamps. It was $3.44. And I get the book within a week, and I'm thinking that's a pretty good deal. Somehow it evaded the tariff thing. And evidently it did, because it says tariff rate free. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner. However, UPS sent me a bill for $10 entry prep fee, they call it. I don't know whether that was simply a UPS charge or that's a government charge. UPS has to pay to the government. I just don't know. But I thought you might, for those who haven't had any experience yet, just want to see this. I figured it to be legitimate. I did a little bit of research to figure out this wasn't a joke. Excuse me. But this is what you might get. And what maybe was most troublesome, apart from the $10, but I mean, I had got a good deal in the book. The book was $3.44. Most of them for sale on Amazon were $50 or $60. So I got a good deal. It wasn't as if I felt I spent too much, but I didn't know about the processing fee until a week later. And they said if I didn't pay the processing fee, my obligation was to send the book back, which is more trouble than paying the processing fee. But in any case, this is what something might look like, a bill you might receive. I thought you might just want to see that. So, anybody have any questions or anything you want to share? Anybody else have a situation of this sort yet?
Not yet.
Oh, I have a quick question.
Sure.
It looks like there are 3 duty class numbers.
Yeah.
Why would there be 3 things that apply to a book?
I have no idea. So keep in mind that I was taking a nap when this came in, and I was half asleep when I first looked at it. And I thought it was for 3 stamps, 6 stamps I had bought, which were $3, by the way. But yeah, I have no idea why there are 3 entries there. But they all say tariff rate free, so
Thanks for sharing that.
no problem. Okay. All right, Tom, let me unshare this. There we go.
All right.
Go
Very
ahead.
good. Well, good evening or good afternoon or good morning, perhaps, to some of you out there. Welcome to tonight's presentation by LASO. I've been given the honor to introduce our speaker tonight. And our speaker is Bill Schultz. He is a retired statistician and college math teacher who lives between Chicago and Milwaukee. He has collected stamps for over 30 years and is a longtime vice president of the Lake County Philatelic Society. His collection mainly spans U.S. and Canadian regular issues, but on occasion he has been seduced by other stamp families, such as the British Machins, or as you'll see tonight, Christmas seals. Tonight's presentation, he intends to share why Christmas seals might be a lure to any unwary philatelist. And with that, let me introduce you to Bill Schultz. Before Bill gets on, I just want to remind everyone, please go ahead and mute yourself at this time so that Bill is the one and only that we can hear. I'm going to mute myself here too.
Tom, stay with me long enough to make sure I'm sharing my screen correctly, please.
Absolutely, go right ahead.
Let's see.
Okay, if you go down to the share button at the bottom, that'll be the green button. That should present you with your various screens on your computer. Click the one where your presentation is starting, and then click the share button.
Did it work?
Let's see what we've got on the screen right now. Okay, there you go. I think we've got you started up here. We got in the beginning, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, you're ready to go. Go right ahead and start.
Boy, against all odds, here I am. So, as Tom said, the purpose of this presentation is hopefully to make you fall in love with collecting Christmas seals. I think it's got a lot to recommend it. And what I'm trying to share with the presentation is some of the features of Christmas seals that I think make them eminently collectible. But before we do that sort of a thing, I got to ask your tolerance to give you a little history lesson. There are gonna be two paths of this history lesson. First, we'll talk a little bit about tuberculosis. Tuberculosis, or like it says on the file, the white plague, or sometimes it's been called consumption, or just TB, at one point was the most feared disease in the world. Many famous people, including, as it says on this slide, Keats and Chopin and Robert Louis Stevenson, people all over in the 19th century, famous and not so famous, passed away from tuberculosis. And the world was united in wanting to do battle with the disease. So in Denmark in 1904, a person named Einar Holbøll had some seals printed. He had noticed a couple years earlier, 1897, that certain places had put out stamps that gave part of the proceeds to the fight against TB. And he had the idea of, why don't we sell seals where all the money goes to the fight against TB? So he had the first Christmas seal printed, which you'll see there on the screen, in Denmark in 1904. So that's path A. Meanwhile, path B. In the USA, in 1871, there was a young doctor named Edward Trudeau that caught TB. And since TB was often fatal, he retired to his cottage upstate to spend his final days until he passed away. But much to his surprise, he got better. And he became convinced the reason he did was that he thought tuberculosis could be cured by fresh air and a healthy diet. And he founded the first hospital specializing in tuberculosis recovery in 1884. You may have heard the word sanatoriums. He founded the first sanatorium. It was a small shack on the Brandywine River in Delaware. So those of you that are with me still, my compliments on your devotion to the subject. And now let's get into the stamps. That hospital in Delaware faced closure unless $300 could be ginned up. So the director of the hospital contacted his cousin, who is a lady named Emily Bissell, who was a fundraiser for the Red Cross. And Emily heard about Denmark and the seals that they had. So a little light bulb went off, and she said, hey, maybe we could do the same thing here in the US and raise $300 to keep the sanatorium open. So she borrowed $40 from her friends and had 50,000, drew up a little seal and had 50,000 of them printed and put them on sale for 1 cent a piece at her local post office. Well, word of this spread, and it attracted, among other people, Teddy Roosevelt, who publicized the idea of the Christmas seals and how wouldn't it be swell if we all bought one and helped Emily out. And those Christmas seals sold out in hours after going on sale. Over $3,000 were raised. Eureka, the beginning of the Christmas seal. And that is an example right there of the first Christmas seal. You can see it's not particularly flowery, but Emily is the heroine of the story. Among other things, the cover has been put out with her picture on it. And that red cross with the 2 slashes across it, it's called the Lorraine Cross, is often associated with many Christmas seal fundraising campaigns. So Emily got the idea and generated the first Christmas seal, and she was a Red Cross fundraiser. Well, the success spawned follow-on seals in succeeding years. You can see there, this is a page from my collection. There were 2 different Christmas seals the first year, pretty much the same, but and then as the years went on, each year they'd create a new design and issue a new seal. Well, the Red Cross took charge of this from Emily, and for the first 13 years, they sold them. And then somebody in the Red Cross said, well, this really isn't our home court. We're not in the fundraising business for tuberculosis or any disease as a fundraising organization. Let's turn it over to a pro. So the National Tuberculosis Association was founded, and starting 1920, they began issuing Christmas seals every year. And as in the case of the first page that you saw just a bit ago, each year there was one Christmas seal design that they'd send out. Then as time went on, the probably the most sounds funny, but the worst thing that could possibly happen to a fundraising organization happened to tuberculosis. People started to figure out how to cure it. And for people, that's a good deal. If you're a charity raising money to combat the disease and the disease is getting beat, that's not a good deal, because people stop giving to the battle if the battle's nearly won. So after a while, revenue started going down for tuberculosis. And by the mid-60s, mid-1960s, the battle against tuberculosis in the United States was going superbly. The National Tuberculosis Association became the National Tuberculosis and Respiratory Disease Association. And the reason was, even though people weren't contributing necessarily for tuberculosis anymore in the battle against TB, they were contributing, or they were worried about smoking at this point in time. This is near the time when people were just learning that smoking caused heart disease and many other problems were associated with it. So the Tuberculosis Association became Tuberculosis and Respiratory Disease Association, and attempted to raise funds on that basis. And in 1973, with tuberculosis no longer considered a major threat in the United States, it became the American Lung Association. which it is till today. So Christmas seals, the same seal, the same program, has been through 4 owners, not counting Emily Bissell. The principal guide to Christmas seals is not the Scott catalog, although as we'll talk in a little bit, there are some Christmas seals that have Scott numbers. But the principal guide to Christmas seals is Green's catalog of TB seals of the world. Christmas seals are not a stamp, but they're contracted out by the organization that's raising funds. They're a fundraising device. And through the years, at least through 2005, I counted up 34 printers that have been contracted to print them up with 7 different unions. Early sheets were, as we said, just one design. More about that in a little bit. And 10 by 10 arrays. But it morphed into multiple SE tenant type arrangements. And we'll talk about that and look at a few of them later. That's kind of the part of the interesting types of things you can get into with Christmas seals. A key point of this, though, is let me underline what I said, that Christmas seals are not a stamp. So you can print your own. You like the Christmas seal for this year? Copy the design and print your own. It's not against the law. If you sell them, you might write into copyright problems, but you won't be a counterfeiter. So unlike US postage stamps, Christmas seals are a sticker. Scott numbered Christmas seals from 1907, when they started, remember, through 1979. And they assign one Scott number to all the seal designs in a particular year, even if there were multiple designs. They get the same Scott number. Scott, being Scott, does give different numbers if the perforations change. But if the designs change, not necessarily. So if you want to keep your sanity, one suggestion is go to Green's Guide and don't try to use this. In 79, Scott stopped numbering them. They assigned WX numbers, 1 through 267, like it says on the chart, based on the ground rules above there. But only one number per year to a Scott design. Here's an example of one of the early Christmas seal sheets. This happens to be 46. And it shows what happened after seals had been issued a number of years. You got the one Christmas seal design there around the outside. But you got the pictures of 4 of the prominent fighters against tuberculosis on single seals in the middle. So if you're a Christmas seal collector and you want to get a complete collection of the seals, you could define it to be the principal design, which in this case would be the picture frame design there, where all those other dozen seals have the same design. If you want to get picky and say, I want them all, the only way you can really get them all for that year, for 46, is you got to get a sheet. And let me just share briefly how I came into Christmas seal collecting. I had a good friend who was an unusual type of dealer. He bought from some dealers and bought collections and sold them to other dealers. And he always had a basement that could not be believed. Giant tables, stamps all over the place, stuff from all kinds of collections. And I used to go over there and hang out. And one night I went over And he had all these sheets of Christmas seals all over the tables from all years. He had bought a collection or two, an accumulation from a guy that just threw them in a cardboard carton year after year. And I thought, boy, that's cool. How much you want for one of each of these sheets, Chuck? I said. Well, just take them, he said. They're not worth anything. Well, that's, if you know me, that's all I had to hear. I went through those suckers for an hour, pulling out one of every sheet. And presently, I have all the sheets of Christmas seals from 1932 through now. And you have to have them if you want to have all the Christmas seals. Because after a while, they stop making one design a year. Like in this one, they either put some of the heroes in the battle against Christmas seals in the middle, or in this one, they put what they call slogan blocks, which are slogans in the fight against TB. This is the 1939 sheet. And again, there's a common design, but in the middle, there are 4 seals that have slogans of the fight against TB. Well, it got even more colorful as the Christmas seal organization got more and more flush, became more and more pervasive in American society. They started running contests. And in certain years, they would allow students from every state in the union to send in designs for Christmas seals. And this is an example of a sheet where the designs have a winner from every state in the union. So if you do collect sheets, and they are relatively inexpensive, let me say they're inexpensive, but they're very, very hard to find. Those of you that are Christmas seal collectors and are watching the presentation know what I mean when you walk through a stamp show and the dealer says, "What are you looking for?" And you say, "Christmas seals." And their eyes cross and they sigh and they just look away. Okay. You can't find them anywhere, but if you can, they're really nifty. If you happen to be like me and have a friend like Chuck that has a box full of sheets, you're in luck. They're a collector's bonanza. Only the pre-1923 seals have any real cost. The 1917 and earlier are worth over $1 in mint. All of those succeeding years where they had portraits and slogans and stuff on a single sheet per sheet, you can't find them, but you can't sell them for much either. So if you are a pure collector and it's the joy of the hunt that inspires you, here you go, here's your quest. Okay. Also, as time went through the years, and the fight against tuberculosis became more and more pervasive, the Tuberculosis Association, besides seals, issued things like milk caps, milk collars. Anybody know what a milk collar is? Well, if you're an old person like me, you remember when you were a kid, the milkman used to bring milk to the door, and he had little advertising circulars around the bottlenecks. And those were milk collars. Some of them are TB milk collars. There are buttons, pins. Tuberculosis Association for about 25 years had lapel pins every year that were different. Bookmarks, posters, and so forth. You can collect them all, depending on your interest and where you have access. Something called tie-ons are one of the more costly elements of a Christmas seal collection. And what those are postcards or Christmas cards that people may have mailed with Christmas seals next to the stamp, where the cancellation goes across the stamp and the Christmas seal. So you can see something from a particular year where the seal is linked to a stamp. And of course, the stamp can't be counterfeited. The seal could be if you chose to consider it worth a lot of money. Also, you can go to other country seals. I also collect Canadian seals, for example, which are very interesting because our brothers from Canada know you're a bilingual country. So most of their seals through the 40s and 50s came in both French and English versions. So you can, if you want to get a complete Canadian seal collection, you need both the Canadian and the French language version of the seal. But what is absent is legal structures, because Christmas seals, again, are not stamps. One other thing there that gets involved is I'm sure many of you know, contractors for the US Postal Service, if they make an error, they're supposed to destroy it. So certain things like foldovers or even misperfs, if they get caught, they should not come out. They should be destroyed in printing. Not true for Christmas seals. Matter of fact, out of those 40 contractors, sometimes they make errors on purpose because they know collectors like to buy them. It's very easy, for example, to get things like on the bottom of this slide. You'll find them on eBay all over. Stage at a time, print up of a Christmas seal, color at a time. Or you'll see if there is an error worth collecting, it's because there's something weird in the error that makes it kind of interesting or cool. Like a bird on a mailbox, or an ink splotch that looks like a bird, or a distinctive color error like the other one shown here. But regular errors like foldovers or misperfs really aren't worth collecting on Christmas seals, because the contract printers would happily just sell them to collectors. Here's one of those milk collars I told you about that went around the neck of a milk carton, or a couple of those buttons that are available. And there are Christmas seal collectors that collect just the buttons or the lapel pins or other things. There's a lot of bling associated with the Christmas seals. Another question that I like to ask when I give this talk is, do you think tuberculosis is vanquished? And Christmas seals really have nothing to do anymore? Well, of course, the answer is no. I don't know how many of you know it, but in 2022, 1.3 million people worldwide died of tuberculosis in 2022, just a couple years ago. Matter of fact, it was the second largest disease for causing human death that there is, second to COVID-19. Tuberculosis worldwide is still a terrible killer. What it amounts to is, it isn't in the United States and Europe where there are vaccinations and healthcare systems, because it's amenable, they find, to antibiotics, and it can be prevented by vaccinations. Although I guess these days there'd be people that would say no, but they'd be wrong. However, in parts of the world where they don't have vaccinations or they don't have access to medical care, tuberculosis is running rampant still. And matter of fact, like I said, it's the second leading killer of human beings in the world among infectious diseases. And 27% of the deaths in 2022, which is the last year I have data, occurred in India. It's estimated that 40% of the people in the world are infected with TB. 40% of the people. Now, most of those are, or many of them, are in Southeast Asia, especially India or Africa. There isn't much of a tuberculosis problem in the United States because of the vaccines and the medical care that has existed to stamp it out. Tuberculosis has both a latent form. I'm sorry, this is just one last little bit on the disease. A latent form and an active form. And roughly 10% of the people with TB have the active form. They're the only ones that can pass it to somebody else. It's passed through breath, sneezing and coughing and this sort of thing, or speaking. And in the US, vaccinations especially have held us down in medical care if somebody has the active form. If you have the active form, you have a 10%, about 10% of the people with TB have the active form. You got about a 50% chance of dying. So it's serious. In the US, the main concentration of TB is American Indians on reservations. So here's some of those tied-ons that I told you about. Early Christmas seals tied on to stamps that pretty well mark the date or the time that the thing was issued and make sure it's not a counterfeit. If you can get one of those early seals like this one tied onto a cover, some of these can go for money. However, this is true, and if you collect Christmas seals, those of you that are in the audience that do know, sooner or later, somebody's going to give you an envelope that went through the mail that didn't have a stamp, just had a Christmas seal. So even though they're not stamps, a lot of times postal employees didn't realize that. So they get canceled and they're good enough for putting a letter through the mail. Or maybe somebody just thought they were a stamp, because many of the early seals look like stamps. But here's an example of 5 different mail. And if you collect seals, somebody will give you one of these. I mentioned that a lot of countries took up the cudgel of issuing Christmas seals once the US hit big. Canada's were bilingual. You'll see some here in both French and English. And Mexico had Christmas seals, has a Christmas seal program. As the seals have declined in popularity, because in Western civilization, the disease is pretty well eradicated. Some of these side programs are dying. Those of you that collect Canadian Christmas seal, you'll bear me out that the hardest Christmas seals to find in Canada are the 2000 and up. You try to find a sheet of 2012 Canadian Christmas seals, not easy. Matter of fact, the only way I could get some to fill out my collection was I contacted the Canadian Lung Association and bought some of their file copies. But 2 years ago, they stopped answering phone calls. I don't know if the office is even open. Because as I said, one of the worst things that can happen is if you're a charitable fundraising organization and your disease gets cured. But eventually, in the case of Christmas seals, everybody else thought, hey, there's money to be gained by printing seals for my particular cause. Or the top four here, I happen to be from Blue Earth County in Minnesota, Mankato, Minnesota, for Minnesotites. And even old Blue Earth County printed up seals for a couple of years to make some money. So now it's 2025. Perhaps even the Canadian national program is winding down. Are all good things coming to an end for Christmas seal collectors? Well, of course, the email situation, people aren't using mail anymore. They aren't using stamps. So if they don't send Christmas cards, there's no need for Christmas seals. So also the disease that these were supposed to find a cure for, people have found cures for if you have medical personnel or people that'll take a vaccination. But for the most part, the greatest fear of a national charity is occurring. Excuse me. Gotta hang up. The greatest fear of a national society has taken place, although the disease is still running wild all over Southeast Asia and Africa. But what most people think today is that the infectious disease problem they should worry about is COVID, and secondarily the flu, and then way, way down TB. But not yet. We aren't wiped out yet. Guess what happened yesterday? True story. My 2025 Christmas seals arrived. Here they are. There are 6 different designs this year. And if you're on their mailing list, you should be getting, I know it's just September 15th, but the Christmas seals are here. So they're coming out again this year. Not all seals have persisted, however. Everybody here remembers polio, I bet. If you collected Sister Kennedy or other polio seals, though, your collection's done because they don't get issued anymore. There are also other types of maladies that have gone out of business as the public has ceased contributing for stickers. And of course, as mail use goes down, it's even harder to generate a contribution from a seal. So I've had a ball. I have a complete set of sheets from 92 years, 93 years now. I got a bunch of pins and buttons and gift tags and stuff. Everywhere I go to shows, I bore dealers by asking them if they have any Christmas seal stuff. I go to flea markets and stuff looking for it. The seals that are important or pricey by themselves are the early ones, the first 10, 15 years. There's a lot of sets that are possible from other countries. Canada especially, I think, is fascinating. There's also other things you could get like Easter seals, Boys Town seals, other types of seals. Here's some ways to get started. There is a National Christmas Seal Society. There's the web link for it. It's $15 a year. publication is called the Yule Log. eBay, you can search Cinderellas or Christmas seals, and you'll find them on occasion. One of the interesting things of Christmas seals is there's a king of Christmas seal dealers. His name is John Denoon, and he operates out of Ohio. His dad used to run the show, and they have one giant warehouse with an incredible stock of Christmas seals, both US and worldwide. So if you decide you want to collect Christmas seals and you're serious and you don't have a friend named Chuck with a basement, you got to know John Denoon. There's his website is pretty simple. It's christmasseals.org. And I would encourage and endorse taking a look there and seeing what he's got to offer. The Christmas Seal Club includes things like free albums and stuff, album pages and stuff to foster a collection. And the whole thing can be done on a budget. You don't have to mortgage the house or give up a new car to get that rare Christmas seal. It's $15. So I hope you find that interesting. This is kind of what I had to say on the subject. Those of you that are collectors, maybe you've already experienced some of the fun of finding that 1936 Christmas seal sheet that you didn't think you could find anywhere, or that 1950, that 2050 Canadian sheet that you didn't think existed anywhere. To me, that's part of what collecting's all about, and it's the thrill of the chase. And Christmas seals really offer that. So I hope you caught some of the bug. And I hope you didn't catch the tuberculosis bug along the way. That's it.
All right. Thank you very much, Bill. That was very interesting. Let me take a look here at the chat, see if any questions came in. Let's see, Brian Jones had to bow out early for an emergency. We certainly wish him the very best dealing with that. Let's see. Bob Finnegan in Oneonta, New York, hope I'm pronouncing that right, says, I have seen Easter seals. Are they related to Christmas seals in any way? So there's any connection between Easter seals and Christmas seals?
Both are fundraising organizations. Easter seals run are not tuberculosis oriented, but they're also raising money to combat. I think Easter seals are mainly birth defects, but they're a fundraising device also. And they're both pretty.
And of course, very collectible.
Yep.
All right. Sue Schrader in Friendswood, Texas asks, could you please show or explain the differences between the two types of the first Christmas seal? And
let's go
Frederick
back.
Lawrence did make the comment, type 2 includes Happy New Year along the bottom.
Go look at them. So you can see the legend inside is different. And the font on the bottom is a little different too. What they are is for your information, is just the first and second set printing that Emily had printed up. The first one sold out in a day. So she wasn't ready for success. She had to go get some more.
Paul, if
And
I
by the
can
way, it
share
had a
my
happy ending.
screen.
They kept the sanatorium open.
Sorry there, Paul, if I can share my screen, I've got images, blow-ups of them. And Bill, you might want to talk to them a little bit more in depth. I don't know if I can share my screen here or not with you, but I'll try. Let me see. Let's see if I can do that. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, those are the two types, and there's a block of four in the middle. Bill, if you want to talk about those, please go right ahead.
I can't see them.
Oh, can't see them?
No.
Can others see them offhand? But that is the
I
difference
see them,
between
yeah.
the two
If I
printings
stop my
offhand.
share, I can, maybe I
Yeah,
can.
if you stop your share just for a moment, that'd be great.
There we go.
Can you see those?
Yep.
Which one was the one on the left, the first version, type 1, and the one on the right is the type 2, or?
Yes. And the type 2 one, we also wish a happy new year.
Do you remember how many of each were printed?
No, I don't. No, I never knew.
Okay.
So I don't
I don't know
remember
either.
because I
Maybe some
never
others,
knew.
maybe some other folks can, but that is the two, those are the two varieties of
I
that
do know that
first.
50,000 were printed of the type 1.
Okay. Very good. Okay, I'm gonna stop my screen and turn it back to you there, Paul.
All right. Let's see, a comment from Sherry Falkenheimer in Albany, New York. The tuberculosis vaccine is widely used outside the US, but not in the US.
I have one other tidbit of information. I didn't mention it. Please don't take it politically, but one figure I've seen is that since Doge stopped the distribution program for U.S. medical aid, that included tuberculosis vaccine and anti-tuberculosis drugs worldwide. And one estimate I've seen, regardless of your politics, is that around 40,000 people have died because the drugs didn't go to India and Africa. Many people think that that's connected to one reason the people in India or their leader may be less thrilled with us now than he was before. So, and you can see that if 40,000 people die. A quarter of the deaths worldwide probably are in India. They have a real problem with the disease.
All right, a question from Linda Hazlett. How do you get on the mailing list for Christmas seals?
Give them money. If you online search out American Lung Association, I guarantee you that if you contact the American Lung Association and say, I'd like to be on your mailing list, you will get the 2025 Christmas seals.
All right, a couple of quick comments from David Teisler, and I hope that I pronounced that correctly. Apparently inflation has hit the CS and CSS dues is now $20 a year.
Oh,
The
okay. I'm out of date.
journal is Seal News. And Mr. Danoon's URL is christmasseals.net.
Oh, sorry about that.
It happens. So not to worry. Again, if you're interested, if you don't get the one, try the other.
But John Danoon is a name to keep in mind. You'll find him whether he's got a net or an org. His website is a treasure.
Yeah, you can definitely find him. Probably use his name in Christmas Seals in your favorite search engine if you don't remember .net or .org. Bob Finnegan's comment, although not a collector of Cinderella type of items, I found Bill's presentation wonderful, and I personally wholeheartedly agree with that comment. He also asked, were there ever Christmas seals that were made as imperforates?
I believe there were. I believe that one of the contract printers did that. What they did is they just simply didn't perforate some of the sheets and sold them as is. I don't personally have any. So, but that would probably be one that would be fairly scarce as far as an error goes.
All right.
Well, here's a comment from someone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as you can see, imperfs on the PCPs. Kind of a
Again, these
further,
are not stamps, so they're not contractually made in any particular form.
if I have a clarification on the about the Easter seals, comment from Ann Grunbaum in Saugerties, New York. Easter seals founded by National Society for Crippled Children in 1919, then by 1967 formally called Easter seals.
Okay.
All right, that is all I see in the chat. Let me personally ask a question. Mentioned really collecting North America essentially. Do you have any exposure to Christmas seals or something similar outside of North America?
Only a limited Mexican. Uh, I guess I'd call that Central America. Outside of that, I've just searched out individual examples like you saw in the presentation. I made it a point to get one of the first Christmas seals that were issued, and but I have not. I know that there are a bunch of them in Europe, but I don't know what much about them, so I can't help any there.
Okay, kind of the reason that I asked, I was kind of curious about other countries that might be majority Muslim or other religions that are not Christian, and yet still are trying to raise funds for lung diseases and wouldn't necessarily call them Christmas seals, what they would call them or anything like that.
Yeah, I do know that in terms of deaths, and in terms of deaths in the 2022 data, India had 27% of the worldwide. China was second with 9%, Indonesia 8%, and the Philippines and Pakistan 6%. So those would be examples of countries where there is a problem. Whether they're raising money to fight it or not, I don't know.
All right, does someone else or have a question or a comment?
Paul, this is Bob Thompson.
Yeah.
I know in a number of countries there are semi-postals that are used to support TB care and research. Very common in Latin America and a number of other places for semi-postals to serve that purpose.
Yeah, matter of fact, from my presentation, that I think I showed the first Christmas stamp, not seal, but stamp on that early chart. That was a semi-postal. So it was either Sweden or Denmark issued that first one. You know, Christmas seals, if you're truly a philatelist and you're interested in how are stamps printed or, you know, what sort of things can happen, it exists on Christmas seals and it's accessible to you. It's a great way to study the stamp printing process, I found. I don't know if that appeals to a lot of people, but it's kind of a, you know, you can get these things that have had unusual things happen to them and they aren't $500 to get one. It's a great way to study errors and this sort of thing.
All right, had a question, or rather a comment come in the chat from Tom Fortunato in Rochester. Bermuda has offered Christmas seals for some time, and I know their design has mirrored those of the U.S. for at least a few years. All right, any other questions or comments on the presentation?
Well, Paul, let me get a few announcements in then if you
Go right ahead.
All right, I have posted the link for the evaluations in the chats, and you will also get an email as you usually do so that you can evaluate the presentation. Our next set meeting will be on October 21st, and it will focus on the Boston Stamp Show with the latest news on that. And we hope, as we've talked about in the past, that a number of you can make the not only the stamp show itself, but the meeting that we'll be setting up for this group to meet in person rather than just online. And then we'll meet again on November 18th to deal with U.S. revenue stamps. Anton, was there anything else we needed to
I don't think,
announce?
I think so, Bob. That's what I would have mentioned. I guess the only other this year, we have our final meeting in December,
Yes,
which is a meet and greet. We just sort of sit down and chat and get a chance to just talk.
That's
So
on
that's going to be our program for the rest
on
of the year.
December 16th. Yeah, our
Yeah.
holiday social
Mhm.
chat hour.
Yeah, so other than that, no, I think we're in good shape there. I did show that at the beginning, I did show I had the scan I put of the tariff bill that I got. I'm going to put that online on the website, so anybody in the club who didn't see it can see it. And if you want to take another look, you can take another look. Just for your own edification. But other than that, I don't have anything more. What I thought we would do at this point, Bob, is there anything else you wanted to say, Bob, before I move on? No? Okay. What I thought I'd do, first of all, is thank Bill for a
Yes.
great presentation. By the way, I have a pile of these stamps in my drawer. I was sitting to my left here, about 10 feet away. I never knew what to do with it. I got them for $5.
Yeah, there you
Member of
go.
our club, and they're probably 5,000 stamps. So I've got to figure out now what it all means. So thank you very much, Bill. And thank everybody for coming. What I'm going to do is turn off the video. And if anybody wants to hang out with us and chat, we can do that. But let me at least end the video here. And we